Wanted to give you my thoughts on the Battlefront 2 beta. I'm going to try to get a little gameplay in here as I'm kind of walking through my initial reactions to the game and its beta. Now, I do understand it's totally a beta. I totally understand. But I did want to give my initial reactions to it. Now, bear with me. I am an Indians fan, and I am watching the Indians-Yankees game and ALDS Game 4. Pretty frustrating for me, so I'm going to try to get through this as quickly as I can. So, wanted to talk about some of the things that I really like and some of the things that I'm a little nervous about moving forward in the franchise. So, let's start with the things I like. Number one, a few of the things I like. I want to start with I think the gameplay has gotten a lot better. I've watched a lot of videos on YouTube. I've watched a lot of guys on Twitch, and I've had about 10 to 11 hours of gameplay myself here. I've done well. There are games, obviously, that I've struggled, but for the most part, I've done well. The gameplay is better. It's a little bit more diverse. I like the class selection. You have classes such as Assault, you have Heavy, you have Officer, and you have Specialist. And then inside each class, you have different guns that you can choose from, different cards that you can equip, which are these star cards, which you can get via loot crates or loot boxes, whatever you want to call them. And then they unlock at specific levels. Now, I'm assuming those levels for the beta are going to be a little bit different from the actual game that gets released. But these essentially make your soldier or your gun a little bit better. You can craft different things. You can add like ion blasters. You can add cooling power that reduces the cooling power of your gun, so on and so forth. And the heroes, you can add a lot of stuff for the heroes as well. Heroes like Boba Fett, you get one for Boba Fett that's called Death from Above, which is pretty powerful. The Death from Above card allows you to reduce the damage as you're using the jetpack. So, of course, Boba Fett flies in the air a lot, and he can reduce his damage depending on the rarity of the card, 50% being the least rare, and then the legendary card being 100%. So you pretty much become a god at that point. So I do think the gameplay is a little bit more diverse with the class system. There's a little bit more customization in the game, but I think Disney had a lot to do with reducing the customization, like additional skins, additional gun attachments or gun skins or whatever. So there's only so much that it looks like EA and DICE were able to do. I do really like the Starfighter battles. I think those are great. So I'm going to go over to those real quick. So when you go into multiplayer, they have the Starfighter Assault. This game mode's a lot of fun. It actually takes a lot more skill now to actually defeat your enemy because you have to shoot a little target in front of them. It's a little circle that appears, and you actually have to aim for that. It's actually a lot more like dogfighting, maybe like I believe the game was called Ace 1 or Ace 1 Combat or something back in the day with PlayStation 3, PlayStation 2. That game was awesome. It's very much similar to that. You do have rockets and stuff that you can fire, but for the most part, it's great. Galactic Assault, very similar to Walker Assault from the first Battlefront, only this one's a little bit different because it allows you to do a few different things. You're actually taking a payload in while you're trying to keep the enemy from either shooting ion grenades or ion rockets at your payload, or you're trying to progress this payload into a big lobby on Naboo, and then you have to progress it into the lobby and then overtake that, and then you win. So that's a pretty fun game mode. It gets a little clustered inside Naboo, but it's still a good time. Heroes are part of the Galactic Assault, so you can use Darth Maul, you can use Boba Fett, you can use Rey and Han Solo in the beta. Then you have Strike. Strike's probably my favorite game mode. Strike is basically capture the flag. Essentially, you're capturing a little briefcase or a something you have to acquire, and then you take that to the ship in the woods in the middle of the map, and that actually gets pretty difficult. You have a lot of guys that you're fighting, a lot of enemies that are coming at you. They can see where the flag's at, essentially, and then you get a lot of gunfights that go on through there. So those are all good things. The graphics are obviously amazing. The sound is incredible. I would expect nothing less from DICE and EA with the graphics. And like I said, I do think the gameplay is a lot more diverse. And I think that they've made a big step forward from the first game. We haven't been able to play Blast or Heroes versus Villains. Not sure if those are the only game modes that you'll be able to play in the actual game or if they're going to add additional game modes. But so far, a lot of diversity in the beta. And I'm pretty excited for the way it turned out. I have enjoyed my time playing the beta. So some of the things that I don't like. Now, this is going to be probably controversial between a lot of people. Some of the things I really don't like, and I want to emphasize really don't like. I don't want to use the word hate, but I'm severely against it. I think this game has sort of a pay-to-win aspect to it. And I want to go into that a little bit because the pay-to-win aspect that I'm talking about has to do with these loot crates. So you have these loot crates. I'm going to hop into a game here so we can kind of talk while I'm going. But you have these loot crates, and I want to show it to you real quick on the home screen. Down here at the bottom it says get more crates. So you have these loot crates. The loot crate system, to me, is a pay-to-win type system because you have a loot crate system where guys can purchase additional star cards or additional crafting material just by buying loot crates. And I'm assuming that in the live game they're going to have a lot more purchasing abilities for those loot crates when the game releases. So the big problem that I see with that is guys, as soon as release, is they're going to be able to power up their guy. Like you can see my star cards there on your right. You can power up your guy and make him really powerful right at the beginning, whereas other guys have to grind a really long time to get these loot crates. So I think that that's going to be an advantage for players, maybe not so much when the game is first released, but a big advantage at first. Excuse me while I'm kind of going through this. I'm not really paying too much attention to the game. I'm more worried about the commentary. So then you have another thing that I'm not a huge fan of is, and I mentioned this earlier, is a lack of customization. I'm really worried about the longevity of the game because, in essence, the longevity of the game, obviously we know the first one did not have a huge longevity due to lack of game modes, lack of customization, lack of progression. And I see this game as an advantage in that with a better progression system, but a disadvantage when it comes to things like the pay-to-win aspect, which I think could be a big disadvantage for this game because if I'm fighting somebody and they're both good players and I have no star cards equipped because I just bought the game, but he's bought a lot of star cards, it could be an issue for me in the long run. So overall, the game is really solid. I'm worried about the loot crate system. I'm really worried about what it can mean for the game in the long run. I'm worried about the longevity, the progression system being more of like a paid to progress kind of thing, because as you progress, especially your heroes, as you buy additional things for your heroes, they actually level up. So if you face like a level 5 Boba Fett, you might be in really big trouble. Because the Boba Fett's going to have everything that he needs. Death from Above, level 4, legendary card, all of that stuff, where you're not going to have any of that to combat that. So I guess we're going to see when the game releases. As of right now, I do recommend that you play it. I can't say I recommend you buy it yet. I think this is more of like a rent game for right now, unless you're a really big Star Wars fan. I really enjoy it, but there are some things I'm nervous about. Other than that, that is all I have to say for today. Leave any comments down in the section, anything that you disagree with, anything that you do agree with, and we'll be back for the next one. Thank you.